Hello, this is Sean, and today I'm going to be making this miniature chest. This was a project that Ara over at Bentley House Minis, which her link was below, did, and she timed herself, and so I'm timing myself as well just to see how long it takes for me to do this project. She was competing against her 3D printer and to see who could do theirs faster, and she blew it out of the water as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, so I took her idea and I am recreating my own based on her dimensions, and so here I am just cutting out all the wood for it. And you can see the dimensions there on that piece of paper down at the bottom of the screen. I will be cutting scenes obviously, but I did record the entire time that I took, except I got started at 6:30 at night when I got home from work after having been up since 2 o'clock in the morning, so I did pause it while I went to bed, but then I started it right back up the next day, as you'll see. I also had to clean up my desk and change my desk around a little bit, so halfway through you're going to see a different setup, the way my bench is. But anyway, here I'm just cutting out all the parts, as I said before. And I usually use a paper cutter to cut my wood, which is only 16th inch thick plywood. But I couldn't find my paper cutter, so some of the pieces are going to be off, or a little bit not quite square, which you'll see in the during the process. And I started with using my typical tacky glue and super glue or CA glue, but I ended up using all CA glue towards the end just because it was easier. And right now I'm building obviously the bottom of the chest. I don't know if you can see at the bottom there or not, but it is 3 inches or 3 inches wide by 1.5 inches deep. About the bottom part's 1.25 inches tall. Here I'm clamping it together to let it glue. This is where I'll make my first cut scene and go to the time. Give it about 20 minutes to set. Those are the pieces for the top. And here I used a technique that I saw on Thicket Works, and where she uses the CA glue and baking soda to harden the parts, and I did that with that frame because it was so thin. And here I'm using my mom's wooden spool to make the curves for the domed part at the top. Here I'm using a pipe cleaner to measure the distance around the dome so that I know how big to make the piece of wood that I'm going to use to cover that. Though I don't know why I didn't do it the right way. I ended up going in between those two domed pieces on the frame instead of over the top of them. I should have just did it right over the top, which I had a lot of difficulty doing this, as you'll see here in a minute. But I decided to put it in between there. I don't know why. Here I'm cutting across the grain because I'm going to soak that piece in some water, warm water, so that I can get it to bend easier. As you'll see here in a second. If I had cut it the other way, then there. I'm soaking it in water for 5-10 minutes just to get it nice and soft. There's my weight. I can't wait. See, it bends pretty easily. So now I'm bending it over the frame, but I'm going to, like I say, I went in between those two pieces. I should have just went over the top of it. It would have made it a lot easier. But there, I'm clamping it just to give it the shape. I skipped all that. And I'm going to glue it in place, obviously. Oh, and when I was doing the clamping, one of the pieces broke off, which you can see over there on the left-hand side, just up near the phone, timer phone. It had broken off. Now it's down there by the clamps. Then I had a big gap in between there, so I used some CA glue to keep it a little bit, to fill it in a little bit. Now I'm just going to let it dry. Now this is the next day, and you can see that I've changed my setup. I don't have that white background. That's my wood desk there that I'm using. I still have my silicone there. Now I'm just sanding it all to make it nice and smooth. Even. You know, what I'm doing is I'm collecting that sawdust because there was still a big gap in that top section, and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of tacky glue to make like a wood paste. And it actually turned out pretty good. I wish I had used a little bit less glue, or a little bit more glue, maybe watered it down a little bit, because it dried very, very quickly. I hardly had any time to use it, but I managed. Filled in that big gap, and by the time I got done with that, it was all dry, and I was able to sand it nice and flat and even. It worked pretty good. I'm just marking which is the back to match it up, but here's the hinges that I'm using. Actually, I ended up only using 2 instead of 3. So anyway, just sanding it all, getting it ready to paint. Painting it all black, nothing fancy. Here it's all painted off. To the right side I've got a fan that's sitting. You can see that block of wood that's right there by the phone. It's got a fan attached to it to help it dry quicker. Now I'm just going to attach the hinges. I don't ever use the nails on it because they're so small and that wood is so thin it would just split the wood, and I just don't like the way it looks anyway. So I'm just marking where I'm going to put them. I just super glue it down. Here I'm sanding the brass so that it'll stick to the super glue better. Super glue will stick to it better, I should say. Now I'm going to put these support rails, I guess, for lack of better terms, just to give it some extra strength for one, looks two, and I use just a jet black acrylic to paint the chest, but these I'm going to be using a water-based stain by Tattered Angels, and I'll be using the copper one. I really like those stains. They work really, really well. Problem is they don't cover over CA glue very well at all, I should say. And you'll see that eventually. And I should have stained these before I glued them down, which I didn't. But anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm just going to sand down where the hinges are so that it'll sit nice and flush and flat against the chest. Yes, those sticks did move. It's because I was breathing out to blow the sawdust away. Caught them as they were. This time I'm going to use tacky glue instead of the super glue. Use 3 rows all the way around. Though I do leave a gap, but you'll see how I fix the gap on the corners. And there's the last piece going on. I guess I'm going to actually use some brass to make the corner supports, the corner braces. Yes, those are a nice pair of scissors. They cut through that thin brass very easily. And I started off by making it a rounded piece, but then I didn't like the way it looked, so I ended up making it a point, a nice sharp point instead. So I just need to cut out 12 of those. And there they are. The black that you see on there was from a previous thing. This is just scrap brass that I had left over. And it's just marker on there. And I'll bet you didn't realize that black marker is actually dark purple. It's not even really black. If you don't believe me, put some on a piece of white paper and then get it wet with some rubbing alcohol and it'll turn purple. And there's the Tattered Angels copper that I'm going to be using to do those rails, or those support beams, whatever you want to call them. And this is really nice. It's a nice copper red color, and it actually has tiny flecks of copper in it, so it's like a metallic glitter, and it turns out really good. You can't see it from here, but it has a really, really good look to it. But you can see around the brass there where it's white, where the CA glue is at, and I guess I should have stained it before I put it together, but oh well. live and learn. So I'm almost done. Got one more part of it to do, and that's the closure, which I'm going to use this piece of leather. And I'm just marking out how wide it is. I'm going to have them covering the hinges. And so I'm just cutting that out. Now I'm just measuring it to make it go all the way around the chest. And then I have these little brass, they're actually doorknobs that my wife gave to me to use. And they're going to be used for the locks, basically, to lock that down. But here I'm just shaving down the ends of it so it's a little bit thinner so it'll fit onto those brass knobs. And then I'll be punching some holes into them. Here I'm drilling the hole for the knob, which you'll see there's a little tiny knob. Got two of them there. I gotta punch the holes for them. I'm gonna use two different size holes. Small one on the part that'll go on first, so that it'll be nice and tight. And then I'll punch another hole there for it to come around on top, which is a little bit bigger, so it'll come off on and off easy. All I'm going to do is just super glue those around the outside of it so that they'll stay in place and not get lost. And that's pretty much it. If you like this idea, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you didn't, let me know what you think. And thank you, Avra, for the wonderful suggestion for this project. Hope to do some more with you another time. Have a better day, as I always say.